Welcome, Kitty Winkies. Halloween is my favorite time of the year. I'm allowed to leave my coffin and stay out all night long. But you little monsters mustn't do that. Listen to the Count's advice for a safe, spooky trick and treating. Don't go without your parents. Don't accept any apples for treats. Don't eat all your candies in one night. Don't do mean tricks to neighbors. Here's my list of do's. Do watch out for traffic. Do carry a flashlight. Do walk together. Do say thanks for the treats. What would Halloween be without a ghost story? At this special time of year, we want a tale of terror, a fable of fright, a book of booze. In other words, something to spook your socks off. Though yours truly, the Count, does many things well, like turning into a little vampire bat and fluttering all over the foggy old world of Transylvania. I'm a lousy storyteller. I leave that department to another of my creepy friends, somebody who knows of the evils that haunt the Halloween night. The spookiest storyteller I know, the man in the black mask, telling the tale of Peter and the werewolf. Once upon a Halloween, in a small town, not unlike yours, there lived a little lad called Peter, who had a pressing problem. No costume for the parade of trick-and-treaters. He wanted to dress up in a very special costume, a werewolf, those bloodthirsty creatures that lurk in the foggy moors, their eyes blazing, their fangs glistening. Ancient legends tell of entire villages terrified by these supernatural beings, half man, half beast, all terror. But Peter couldn't find any drawings or storybooks that showed these mythical creatures, or what they looked like, not at the local library or at school. Until one sunny day, the friendly mailman came up to him. "If I was looking for something like that," he said, "I'd ask over at that strange house on Foggy Lane. You never see anybody in the garden. It's all full of weeds. Looks more like a graveyard. All weeds and strange-looking stones. Looks like a real old haunted house to me. Even the house number fits it. 13. The only mail they get is junk mail from costume shops and makeup places. Stuff like that. Real spooky stuff." "Who lives there?" Peter asked. "Mr. and Mrs. Wolf, new in town," said the mailman as he drove off in the mail van. The hair on the back of Peter's neck stood up in fright. It can't be a coincidence. That's the place. It's a civilized, tamed werewolf family that moved in, and nobody noticed. Bet they'd know about dressing up like their great-great-great-grandparents, he thought. "I'll go over tonight after doing my yard chores," the lad foolishly thought to himself. Well, raking up all the fallen leaves and stuffing them into those funny pumpkin bags took longer than he thought. And by the time he cleaned up, it was getting dark. He told his mother he wouldn't be too late, but he didn't tell her he was going to visit total strangers by the name of W. Wolf. Ah, that night was wickedly wonderful. It was made for evildoers, when mere mortals cringed at the shadows and imagined the worst. A time when the chill winds shrieked through skeletal branches of the trees, and clouds tumbled through the night sky. Could there be a fearful sight within those swirlings? Perhaps a coven of witches, flying on their broomsticks, capes flapping, their hideous cacklings and cruel laughter piercing the night air? Not a night for a foolish young lad to venture forth, you say? You're absolutely right. As Peter walked through the darkened village streets, he looked at all the Halloween decorations. There were smiling pumpkins beaming all over town, on doorsteps, porches, and paths, their bright orange smiles glowing. But tonight wasn't a treat for Peter. Far from it. It seemed emptier than normal, darker than he remembered, and even the cats who took over the town after dark seemed missing. Strange, he thought. Why didn't I watch TV tonight? There was that MTV Monster Rock Party with the Rolling Bones, or maybe that Frankenstein movie on Channel 7. He could be comfy on the couch with hot, buttery popcorn instead of feeling a little frightened. Things got even stranger as he turned the corner onto Fog Lane. 'Cause it was. A dense fog swirled towards him, its tendrils seeming to clutch and smother his presence with an oozing gray silence. The fog was so dense he couldn't see in front of him, so he flicked on his flashlight and felt a little more at ease. The first sight of the house was frightening indeed. A huge black iron gate, all twisty and twirly, with a winged dragon all coiled on the top, with its forked tongue spitting out flames. Maybe I shouldn't have come at night, thought a nervous Peter. During the day, it's probably better. It's rude knocking at strangers' doors. He pushed the heavy, hideous door aside. Beyond the creaking gate was a rough stone path, and he cautiously walked along its mossy steps. The mailman was right. It did look like a graveyard, an old, abandoned one at that. In the dark, carved skulls on cracked gravestones grinned at Peter as if thinking, "Gotcha now, you foolish little one." Suddenly there was a crash of thunder, and lightning crackled overhead. It made the scene even scarier as the booming crescendos roared across the night. Peter's knees started to knock together now, and in his tummy he felt a knot of fear tightening like the victim's noose on the hangman's gallows. This was indeed becoming a night to remember for one curious little boy. Peter summoned up his courage, held his flashlight tighter, and walked into the swirling fog. "Be brave. Just keep going. It'll be okay," thought Peter to himself. He was mistaken. Much more was in store for this foolish intruder. Out of the gloom, the house slowly appeared. First, its monstrous silhouette, dark against the Halloween moon. Spiked torrents sprung from its gabled roofs, giving an unworldly look, as stained glass windows, arched like bats' eyes, stared down at Peter. Gnarled trees lashed out their clawing branches and created shadows that crept and slithered around the darkened porch like phantoms of the night. "You've got to get a good idea of a werewolf. This is a good idea, or is it?" questioned Peter as he cautiously tiptoed up the creaky front steps. The beam from his flashlight lit up a weird-looking doorbell, shaped like a witch's face. As he walked across the old, rickety porch, he looked out at a strange-looking doormat with creepy lettering on it. It said, "Enter at your own risk." Gritting his teeth and summoning the last of his dwindling courage, he stepped bravely forward and reached up to the door knocker. His trembling finger pointed at the doorbell in the grotesque witch's face. Immediately, a scream rent the air. Peter froze to the spot in fear, his hair on end. It was like his feet were nailed to the floor. He couldn't move or run away. The horrible screaming continued, and his eyes widened in terror as the front door slowly opened. Standing in front of him was a werewolf. Its telltale pointing ears, its blazing yellow eyes, and those sharp fangs. The werewolf moved towards him and put out his paw. "Hi, can I help you?" it said. "Help! It's a talking werewolf!" screamed Peter. The beast shook its head, then reached up and took it off. It was a mask. "I'm not a talking werewolf. My name's William Wolf," said a friendly man holding the mask under his arm. "We just moved into the neighborhood, fell in love with this spooky old Victorian house, real handyman special. I'd like you to say hi to my son Joey. He's about your age." Peter, confused, stammered out, But that horrible screaming, that graveyard out front, it's so spooky." "Yep, it's supposed to be," said Mr. Wolf. "That scream is a tape that starts to play when you stand on the doormat." "The graveyard is all make-believe, too," piped up a small voice. It was Mr. Wolf's son, Joey. "Come on, I'll show you," he said, leading the way to the scary cemetery. "But the fog and the thunder and the lightning," Peter questioned Joey as they stood amongst the scary stones. "That was special effects, too. The fog machine is hidden behind that big tomb, and the speakers for the thunder are hidden here," said Joey, lifting up a pretend headstone made of styrofoam. "It's all make-believe my dad designs for the movies and TV. Bet you've seen his stuff before? He did all the special effects for the Pumpkin's Revenge, number 13. I saw that. Ooh, those orange teeth, said Peter. Did he do Witches from Beyond the Stars? Yeah, his favorite effect was the scene where the witches attacked the jet fighters. Cool. Killer Worm was his latest. Wow, it must be great to have a dad like that at Halloween. I came here like a dummy to ask for help in doing my costume as a werewolf. You came to the right place, said Mr. Wolf. That's my business. I'd love to help you. Making you into a werewolf, piece of cake, said Mr. Wolf, and it was. Well, children, as you can imagine, Peter's costume was magnificent. The face mask fit perfectly. The fur looked and felt real. Joey dressed up the same way, and they went out Halloween night as the Werewolf Twins. So now you know all that scary stuff is all make-believe. It's not real. Or is it? This was your storyteller, the man in the black mask. A most pleasant good night. Sleep tight, and don't let the vampire bats bite.